All right, now we're going to talk about using the torch. So this particular torch, as I mentioned, is using acetylene and air that's pulling through these venturi. Now I'm going to show you how to remove these tips. We have several tips which are stored in a drawer down here. And basically you loosen this collar and you're able to remove the tips. You'll notice that we have different size tips. Typically, if we're annealing, you wouldn't want to use a small tip because it's going to take a lot longer. So you want to use a slightly larger tip, one of these two. This one's labeled a number 2 tip, and then we have a number 3 tip. So I'm going to go with the number 3. And the way that you then insert this, and you're all free to change out the tips. You'll notice there are 2 little O-rings at the tip of this, and they fit down inside that torch and kind of, fit down, lock in, and then you tighten this collar, okay? So now your torch is ready to be used. Now you can orient this knob wherever you want. Typically, I like to, I'm right-handed, but I like to keep it in my left hand, so I usually have it so the knob so I can easily turn this on and off, with my index finger and thumb, okay? And so again, we have a flashback arrestor. This keeps gas from flowing backwards through the line, and we're good to go. Now, at the bench, when you come over here, a few things need to happen in terms of safety. One of the things you need to do is you need to survey the table and make sure there are no flammables on the table. So if you're using a rag or something like that to be able to dry off your metal or your hands, or if I've noticed that people have paper towels on the bench, you should remove those immediately. Anything flammable, steel wool, especially we'll use steel wool later on. I don't want to see any steel wool over the soldering bench. You need to make sure that you have your hair tied back if you've got long hair. And then the other thing that you need is a pair of safety glasses. Now, I'm okay with regular glasses. If you want, I am going to remove mine and use safety glasses instead. But you need to make sure you have a pair of safety glasses on. And then the ventilation hood must be on as well. There's a switch. Normally I turn this on, though. You don't have to worry about that. And it's on every day when we come into class. But that's actually going to draw any fumes out that might be given off from the torches and the annealing process. Although there should be very limited fumes coming off. You'll notice that we have a quench container. This is just a stainless steel bowl that has water in it, so we're going to use that for quenching, because copper, when we anneal it, we'll be looking for those black oxides and kind of a light pinkish color to the metal, or reddish color to the metal, and or orange color to the metal, and then we will be picking those up with a pair of tongs and quenching them. Some other things to kind of be aware of is when you come over to use this argument, you need to approach everything as if it's hot. Before I handle anything, because you don't know who has been near or who's been using different things. And so if someone was annealing and they had their piece of metal close to this edge, the edge of even this pan may be hot. So when I come over, a lot of times I put my hand, before I touch anything, I put my hands near that thing I'm going to be touching, to make sure that I don't burn myself by handling something that has been being heated or has been near a torch. Now, the other thing that we need to have with us and make sure we have is either a striker, right? And this has a little piece of flint that's in here, and then this creates a spark, okay? Now, over the years, I use these quite often, but over the years I've noticed students have problems learning how to use it. So I'm going to go over kind of the proper technique for this. Now, most students that I see using it grab it like this, and they just start like pinching it, and you really have no strength there to even do that, okay, in your hand. And you'll notice that what I do is the part that moves, there's a stationary part and there's a part that moves. I make sure I'm gripping the part that moves with my thumb, and I'm putting pressure downwards. That's putting pressure on the flint against this striker component, and then we get a nice fat spark. you don't grab it like this, and you don't even grab it like that. You have to make sure that your thumb is putting pressure. And you notice I hook my finger underneath this little ledge in the wire, right? And that lets me get a nice thick spark. So if we were to light this torch, and I'm going to light this out, here. Obviously, you would not want to point this at your, person next to you. You'd want to keep it over the vent or under the vent, over the table area. But I'm going to show you from here. So I'm going to open my valve, and I'm not opening the valve full bore. Okay, I'm just cracking it open, and I'll hear a little hiss. You need to have this in your hand immediately before opening this valve. I have witnessed students open the valve and then go search for this. The whole time the room is filling with gas, okay? So open the valve, make sure you have this in your hand though before you open that valve. And we're gonna open the valve up, I'm gonna put this beneath it and go like that, and I got it, okay? You'll notice I lit it from under. I did not have my hand here. If I do that, the flame will go up and it'll burn my hand. So I'm underneath the torch, I open the valve just slightly, and I've got it, okay? Now, I can open the valve more now once I've got it started if I want more gas to flow. I'm going to show you a couple things. We close these, if we cover these with our hand, look what happens to the flame. We're burning straight acetylene, which is very sooty and very bright. Don't put your hand over those holes. It's important you keep those clear. So we're going to hang on to the torch down here, okay? You'll also notice, watch these holes when I shut off the torch. I don't know if you saw that or not. I'll try to zoom in on that again. When I shut this torch off, a little bit of gas will shoot out from those holes. See that? Okay, barely did it, but sometimes that freaks students out a little bit, but that's normal. You'll get just a little bit of pop to that whenever you turn off the torch. Okay? Okay, so that's how you turn on and off the torch, okay? Now, another tool, because that's sometimes difficult to use a striker, we have this little handy tool. This has 2 AA batteries, and the bottom of it has a switch that you can turn on and off. And then when you press on this right here, you'll hear this clicking sound. And if you look in there, it's like a little tip of a spark plug, and watch what happens. We're getting a spark. It's kind of hard to see, but we get a little spark that shoots up from there. So the way this is meant to be used, and I'm going to stand up so you can kind of get out of the way so you can kind of see this, but basically I open my valve and I lay my torch in there, and because I'm laying the tip of the torch against this striker and I open the valve, it ignites it. So I don't stay there with, with this down in there, right? I lift it out as soon as it lights, okay? Okay, that's how it works. So this, if you have trouble with the striker, you can always go and use this automatic striker, okay? All right, now, the only other thing that I need to have with me is a pair of tongs. I grabbed these copper tongs over at the water bucket right here. So we're going to use this to be able to pick up our pieces and quench them. I'm going to move you over so you're closer so you can see what's happening here. All right, and now we're ready to anneal. All right, so I'm going to work with my torch, and I'm just going to work on one piece at a time. And again, I just have this setting in the copper sitting in the pumice rock, and I'm just going to heat this piece, and I'm looking for some oxidation to form. Now again, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to use the torch with my left hand now and use the tongs with my right. And we're looking for that oxidation to form when we pull away, right? And you'll also see we get a little bit of reddish color to that copper, and then we just pick it up. You don't need to turn your torch off. We're just going to move to the next one. You need to be careful, right, when you handle this. So if you're worried, you can use your tongs to move your annealing pan. And notice I'm moving my torch. I'm not sitting in one spot. I want to make sure that I evenly heat up the piece of metal, although copper distributes the heat very, very evenly. So chances are, it's, the whole thing's going to be hot. But it's a good habit to get in that, or it's a good habit to get into, just making sure that you are keeping your torch moving. Now, you'll notice when I quench, I don't hesitate. A lot of students will hesitate, and then they'll just barely dip it in, and it steam shoots back and hits their hand. So you and you don't want to toss it, you just want to place it. If you toss it, you can actually wind up denting the metal because it's gotten softer. It's much softer, and you can actually dent it or bend it. There we go. We got our oxides, and then now we have our last one. So this is the activity that we'll come in and do immediately, when class begins, and we'll go over, we'll do a little bit of a review to make sure everybody's comfortable, and then we'll start in cutting on the stalks here and annealing your sample pieces. And when you first start doing this, a lot of you will be doing this. You'll be nervous. It's fine to just relax and just nice, slow, circular patting. The other thing I didn't mention is you'll notice distance-wise, I was probably right about it here in the terms of the tip. I'm not down on it like this, okay? I want to lift up, so I want to keep my height a little higher. I'm out here kind of these bushy tips, just kind of like moving those around the surface of the metal, okay? When we're done, we'll turn off the torch. We'll place it there, making sure that the valve is closed. And then we can come over to our water. Now, once a lot of people start using the quench bucket, the water will get warm. So, but this is just by just being me. You'll notice that we have oxidation, but a lot of times students really love the colors that form on copper from the heating process. So there are pieces, and these are quite soft now. I have to be cautious with these. Because they are easy to bend, okay? Now, we're going to come over here to our pickle area. This is called the pickling area. And our pickle area contains crock pots. And those crock pots contain an acid, all right? And the acid is called pickle. And you'll notice that the oxidation that forms on these pieces covers the outside surfaces, and if we were to hammer or we were to roller print these pieces without cleaning the oxidation off, we would embed that oxidation into the surface of the metal. So we need to place it in the pickle, and you'll notice I'm going to just place them standing up on the inside of the pickle pot. And this is just a crock pot, obviously. It's just a crock pot that we're using here to be able to set up our pieces. So you can see what they look like in there. So what's going to happen is when this pickle is hot, it will speed up the cleaning process, and you'll notice that it's removing the oxidation very, very quickly. And this pickle is a form of mild sulfuric acid, which is, battery acid. It's what's in your car battery, but it's very, very mild. We buy it in granule form and then mix it with water. Rio Grande sells this. A lot of other jeweler supply companies will sell it. It used to be called Sparex solution as well, but we call it pickle. And you'll also know, and this is on the container that this usually sits in, it says no steel. All right, that is very important. When I place the copper into the pickle pot, I use copper tongs, because if I place steel in this pickle, there will be a reaction that will occur between the steel and the sulfuric acid, and it will cause anything that I put in this pickle pot to start copper plating. And we automatically get a little bit of copper plating when we anneal brass and we put it in here, or other metals. But we want to try to keep that from happening. So you always use copper tongs to, you know, place things inside the pickle. And we will have, you know, steel tweezers and, you know, different things in the future that we'll be using for various reasons, but you never want to use those to drop your pieces in. Always use your copper tongs. Now, a lot of people ask, well, how long does it take to clean the metal? Well, it really depends on, first of all, heat, and then also how fresh the pickle is. Eventually, this solution will turn green from all the copper particles that are in it. And it's still good for, you know, for a while, but when it gets really broken down, it takes longer. So when the pickle is fresh, it cleans very, very quickly. And you can see, look at that, all that oxide just rubbing off. And then we normally come over here to our rinse bucket and dip it first before we touch it, right? I touched it before, but you should wait. And then once that's rinsed, you can kind of like just, you know, rinse it off. And we don't want any scale or oxidation on the metal. The copper should turn a peachy color. There's still a little bit of oxidation there, so I may go back in just for a bit longer. But again, usually maybe about 5 minutes and your pieces are clean. So we're all going to be doing this. You're all going to be prepping your samples by annealing first and then quenching, and then you're going to pickle those pieces and then pull them out and we'll dry them off, okay? Alright, so I've brought my pieces over to the sink, and so I rinsed them in that water bucket, and now I just come over and just kind of wash and clean off. Now, if you're real concerned, you can take a toothbrush and you can, we've got a material called pumice. It's in this little container, and you just shake a little bit of pumice out, and then the pumice, you'll dampen your toothbrush, and you can kind of just scrub the surface of your copper to remove any oxidation that might be stuck on there. And I can just kind of use that, even that same pumice that's on the brush, I can kind of rub on the other sample pieces and rinse those off. So, and some people will put a bucket of water over here, a container of water, so we're not wasting water to kind of rinse these in as well. We've got various buckets and containers that are up here. So feel free to use those. Again, it doesn't take much pumice. You don't need to dump a ton out, and just a little bit of water, mix that in, and that'll just help loosen any stubborn oxide that might be on the surface, because we don't want to embed that again in our metal. That's why we're doing this. It's just to clean our metal thoroughly. All right, now once I have that, our next steps are going to be to place these pieces of metal on steel surfaces. If we place these pieces on steel and it's damp or it's wet or even moist, we will wind up getting surface rust forming on our steel tools. So it is absolutely imperative that you dry these off. So that you could use paper towels to do that. Again, this will get quite wasteful, you know, with a lot of use and a lot of us doing this. So I recommend using your towel. Let me grab my towel. So have a rag, a shop rag, or a washcloth or something that you can use to dry these off thoroughly. That's a quiz question, by the way, so make sure that you are taking good notes as I'm going through this in your notebook. I will also, while I'm drawing these, I'll direct your attention to this board. This board contains a lot of the information that will wind up being on your quiz. I will make sure and take a picture of this for you all to see. This is kind of how I will conduct my demos as I go through stuff. I'll make sure and list out, and these are vocabulary words over here. So make sure you get this information, make sure you have it, and that you're aware of what those different terms mean and why it's important that you know those. So again, this combined with the videos, combined with your handouts that you read through, and again, these are the handouts listed that you need to go over. You should be covered. And again, the quiz will be 10 questions, short answer, not difficult. If you watch this video, it should not be difficult to ace that. So make sure that you're taking good notes as we go through this. All right, so we've thoroughly dried these, and so now we're ready to go to our next steps of surface embellishment samples. So let's get started on that.